So we're here to talk through this Canal View puzzle from Murat. It's not the hardest in this week, but it's, for its size, rather difficult, and it showcases a lot of the different styles of logic that come up in this variation, so we wanted to highlight it. To get started, I guess there are two kinds of steps, both deriving from the cave origin you can think about. Those really deal with looking at very small or very large numbers in this powers of two theme. The very small numbers are a spot to start. If these were twos in a cave puzzle, we'd have ways that interplay, in this case as ones in a Canal View puzzle. There are cells that if we shaded could not escape. You can't shade the cell and shade another, so you'd have an isolated cell. Similarly here, you couldn't go up and out if you shaded that cell, so we can quickly get a sense that these are shaded, and then one of the cells here will be shaded, but not both. And one way I notate that is to at least suggest that there will be a barrier and the wall can't go across both of those cells. On the high end, the place to start is really to consider that if we need to shade as many as 8 cells and 6 can go in this other direction, we can do things like shade in these few. This has 5 and then needs at least 3 coming down. Having these cells shaded now places a nice constriction on this bottom group. It could have before continued indefinitely to the top, but now you can't form a 2 by 2 shaded square, so it has a limit of just 3 cells coming up. 3 coming up and 1 going left. We need at least 1, 2, 3, 4 going this direction. Can't go any further because it would overwhelm this clue. So it takes these 4, it needs to take this 1 and this 3, so it's basically being maximized in its use. For connectivity, we can shade this piece. This 4 clue now looks like it has 3 around it, so it's going to take at most 1 more in some direction. To actually do a little more there are places in these puzzles where the 2 by 2 rule will isolate the grid. Notice if you shaded this cell, you couldn't shade either of the other 2, so we get a little wide pentomino group, but it couldn't connect together. So you can look around at different cells and make eliminations like that. What we'll actually do, though, is come back to the top and see that this 8 clue now is fully specified. We have this 2 by 2 rule. This group has to connect with this cell, so we can shade here. We've now marked an unused cell near this 8, so let's just go back and do our count again. We can take as many as 6 going down, so at least these 2 over. We can take as many as 4 going across, so at least these 4 are coming down. This cell being marked off is now nice in that it's going to show us that the only path for this group to get out is through these cells here. So let's track some more stuff we did. We just fulfilled 2 clue. We're now going to transition into thinking about connectivity for a bit. And this is where there's an interesting but challenging deduction to find, which is up in this area where you have a channel to get by this 1 clue, and you also have a rather large clue to satisfy. I'll have you notice 2 things. If these 3 cells are easy for the 4 to get, the 4 has to take at least 1 of these circled cells. Notice for connectivity that the canal wall would, or the canal view, the canal itself would have to extend through both of these cells for this to come down this way. If it shades the cell, it marks off both of these white cells. So once you know that at least 1 of those cells is shaded, you can say that this cell is not shaded. It's a trickier deduction, but one that really accelerates the progress in this puzzle. And once you actually mark this as blocked, you'll see that the canal is going to have to use this left side to get into the grid, and the rest of our solve is going to focus on thinking of how to use that information. So we need to get through this grid on the side. We should recognize something I guess we hadn't marked yet, but if the canal has to come on the bottom here, it's going to be too long when it reaches the 2. So the actual path the canal takes is up top. Notice we fixed a full size here of 6, so we can just mark off actually those two. Now we could do more here to continue, so this cell would be instant death for connectivity. It's going to come this way. 4 needs this cell to work through. Let's go ahead and mark some places we can't fully shade through, so we couldn't shade both of these cells. We'd be too large coming to this 2. What that says is sort of connectivity going to come down. This 2 here now can't go fully there. And there's a long but extended break, something like this, which says the 4 won't fully come down here. What that means is really the connectivity is going to be between these pieces and coming out to the right over here. I guess I have an option. I can shade this cell because the 2 is going to need to come over. It's worth also noting, though, that this cell is not going to come fully down. If it came 3 down, it couldn't come across, can't come to the left, and can't connect down here. So it has to go over to still connect with the rest. If that's still true, this has to still get out. It means it's going to have to come up, and so this is actually unused. This is unused. We can now specify the 4s. And we'll just mark off things we now know. Marking off around that 2 really simplifies this section down here. This 4 is finished. We need connectivity, so we're going to need to bring this through the top. This needs to connect up. It cancels here. We have this cell unused, and we finished the puzzle. There are different challenges throughout the rest of the week from this type. Unfortunately, no very easy example of the type, but I think this highlights use of low and large clues, use of connectivity, and the one very interesting observation when you think about these middle cells, where you have a set of cells that must one or the other be shaded, but because in either view that cancels or affects another cell, we could make progress. And so that is the key cell to get forward in this puzzle. Hope you learned something about the style. I'm not sure we'll highlight it again too soon, but as a variation of cave and other shading puzzles, particularly those with the 2x2 shading rule, I think it has a complex interplay that is pretty interesting. We'll see you again soon.